Hello, hello, everybody. Got some hype music going on. Oh, shit. Hi, Corey. Nice to see you back. How are you doing? Let me switch over my screen as well. Spoilers. How's everyone doing in the chat? How are we all? For once, we're actually a little bit early. I need to see if we can make this a little bit of a habit. And just like roll into it on like a chill manner. And people popping in. How's everyone doing? We make sure that we're not missing anyone for the feedback. Yeah, we got everyone. Nice. Yeah, week over here has been surprisingly busy because, as some of you might know, we're kind of ramping up a really big project right now. So we're basically calling it like the first project for Beyond Extend Studios, right? So we're gonna have a bunch of people get together and then make our own like environment together. We just rounded off like all the interviews kind of for it. So we had a look at all the candidates, and we're at this point where we can basically pick who's gonna be joining us. So it's gonna be freaking exciting. So yeah, it's been a little bit hectic, but good. Right, because there's a lot of prep stuff that needs to be done as well. So a lot of documentation too. But yeah, stuff that needs to happen, you know? It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be amazing. I'm excited for it. Like I really can't wait until we kind of get started for it. I've been kind of prepping this for like a long time because it is like a new thing, right? So like a lot of the groundwork had to be, like a lot of the foundational work had to be laid. So yeah, I'm happy that we're at this stage where we're getting people on. It's gonna be exciting. It's Paul. Hi, Paul. How are you doing? So yeah, that's been pretty busy. And now that is kind of, like I said, like the interviews are kind of done, right? So I'm kind of ramping down on it ever so slowly. So I've been rediscovering whatever else I kind of need to leave behind for a little bit. So there was like a whole series of like articles that I had written up, but still need to be published or kind of refined. So I think I'm gonna go slowly back into that as well over time. Now that the main hurdles are kind of out of the way, that it's gonna be good as well. Get some variation going. It's good to always be busy. All's doing good. It's good, man. How about yourself? Yeah, I'm doing good. Just giving everyone like an update on whatever we've been doing this week, which has mainly been like studio stuff. So yeah. Exciting times. What's this? Hell yeah, exactly. That's the spirit. Okay. I hate this. Whenever I hover over something, like with my mouse, it will like retain that position. Oh, weird. When I do it with the mouse, it doesn't happen, right? So annoying. Yeah, but we're here, back again for another Work in Progress Wednesday. Welcome everybody. As always, if you have any questions or if you wanna pitch in with feedback that you have for the people that we have on screen, then feel free to do so. And yeah, let's get into it. First one, we have Netraraj, who is working on this fire lookout tower, and this is coming straight from the community, right? So these are people from the community that have posted up their work, and they're asking for feedback on certain points. So Netraraj is asking for, is it possible to have feedback on the environment itself, since most of the aspects are slowly getting finished? So any suggestions going forward? Yeah, let's have a look, right? Let's observe what we can tell. Hi Vishal, we're giving some feedback to people from the community, so feel free to hop on in and shout out anything that you might want to say. The majority of the stuff here is really coming together nicely. I like what you did with like the terrain. Feels like very organic. It doesn't feel flat at all. Nice use of meshes as well. Great focal point too. The let's start picking some stuff apart, right? Like the windows, like the shader on it feels a bit weird. It's almost like it's a semi-transparent thing. So yeah, there's something weird going on with the shader. I think one of the options there could be that you have to do like a planar reflection, like that. Those are like specifically made for like flat surfaces to help you capture reflections on flat surfaces. Maybe that might help. I actually don't know how that works now with Lumen and its reflection capture, so that might be something to check out. So planar reflections might be something to look into. Hold up, let me switch up my music here a little. What software am I using? I'm using Affinity Photo. It's a really good replacement for Photoshop. Like the entire Affinity suite is basically amazing for this stuff. So yeah, the window shader feels a little bit off. Live, go home. Yeah, I don't really know about this. Something doesn't really feel right about this piece of tarp just hanging here. Like I would almost feel like it would be maybe more interesting if it's like stitched together, but like two pieces of tarp, right? Or maybe something that is a bit more recognizable, like maybe the blue tarp as well. You could almost use it, like if you use the blue tarp over here, you could kind of almost use it as like a nice contrasting element, because blue and red is going to have like nice color contrast. So you could kind of use that to be like a focal point, or like to emphasize a focal point. Just gonna say tarp for this. It's just like more a suggestion, right? I don't know how much of a focus you want to draw to this piece of tarp, but it has like a message on it, so I think it would be nice to highlight it for storytelling reasons, right? Yeah, it could definitely be interesting. Like that's the way that I always think about stuff, right? Is if I want stuff to stand out, if I want things to stand out, I'm always looking for ways to contrast them, or like ways to make them stand out with like lighting or something like that, right? But in this case, the tarp is such a good quick fix for that. And it's also gonna get rid of this weird feel that you have like a really large piece of a blanket, but it doesn't look like a blanket anymore. It's just like a piece of random cloth. It doesn't feel like it belongs, right? I'm trying to get at. So blue and red contrast. Definitely help there. Okay. Let me boost the music a little bit. Yeah. Vishal is saying the background also seems off, in my opinion. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, Vishal? Like, what do you think feels off about it? Because that's an interesting thing to bring up. In the meantime, Luis Alberto, hey Timothy, why did you stop doing the podcast with Will? They were so great. We just didn't have the time to dedicate towards it anymore. Like, that was basically the thing. It was like the regularity, like we couldn't really keep up with it. It's the short story of it. Yeah. It's been on my mind, but I don't know. Too busy with other stuff. Who knows? Maybe at some point. For all the people that are new to the stream, this is where I give feedback to people from the community that ask for feedback, but feel free to pitch in yourself as well. Or if you have any questions on what am I explaining, feel free to shout those out as well. In the meantime, so we kind of focus on the main building, right? Like the stuff that really seems off at this point, which is like the window and like this tarp. Bit of tarp. I think what I'll say, this is kind of debatable, right? This is kind of more up to your opinion, but this rock formation feels very gamey. And I don't know if it would actually be better to just replace this with, like, I don't know, like trees or like bushes or like anything else, right? I don't know, it's gonna be trees because bushes are gonna be low to the ground anyway. And I'm quoting this down as gamey because that's the word that I'll describe for it. It's yeah, it's just because it's placed there very deliberately in like a very gamified way, you know, where that rock formation is not something that you would see in like real life because you wouldn't really have like an outcrop like that on top of a mountain then, right? So yeah, maybe replace this with like a couple of trees and then have like a couple of bushes, fill this area a little bit up more, make it like a little bit more overgrown maybe. Could possibly be an interesting way to approach this. Should have spotted that earlier, but didn't really pay attention to that little area there. What it's also going to be doing, and this is something that I wanted to bring up before, is right now you have like a really nice composition, right? But it also, and this is totally up to you, right? Like it also kind of feels forced, like it kind of feels like too deliberate to be like a natural thing. So this random collection of like trees and bushes like could actually help you regain that natural feel back again. And you can do the same thing on this side, right? Like not everything has to be like the right height as long as the main compositional line is kind of intact. And kind of break up this line a little bit. Because I think the core thought there is good, right? Like you have this like nice bowl shape that leads you towards this tower in the middle. That works nice. I think you just have to be careful with how forced it kind of feels. But that's honestly, it's more what you feel, right? Like I'm trying to be like very, very ethereal about it, or like very, very, I don't know, Like it's up to your artistic intention what you want to get out of it, right? Like currently it feels like that to me, but if you don't feel like that, then that's also good. So it doesn't, to me, it doesn't feel natural to me. If you just add like a little bit of randomization, you can kind of fix that like real quick. But the rest of it, I love what you did with the groundwork. That's coming together like really nicely. I love how everything kind of blends together as well. Maybe on some of the grass, I know that we're zooming in like way close. But sometimes when you have like separate chunks of grass, they would actually kind of sprawl out, right? Like this is sort of what you would see, like where you have like the edges kind of like flaying, and then the top of it will be straight, and then the edges will be flaying again. And you can kind of use that to your advantage to create like nice fluffy chunks in there, right? Because now I have the feeling that your grass is a little bit too straight, and breaking it up like that can really help you a lot with giving it like more fluffiness as well. Kind of taking control of all the details, right? And I'm dealing with this currently myself on my level as well, right? Where I went out to the forest and I looked at like grass, and like if it's in huge patches, then you don't really notice it that much. But if it's in separate chunks and like there's loose soil underneath it, like you tend to get these like clumps of grass, which are kind of interesting. So you can kind of like replicate that here as well. Vishal is saying in the chat, cannot make out whether it's a clear day, a cloudy day, the light intensity, the fog. Yeah, I think it's like a very neutral day, right? Oh, I see what you're saying. Like it's yeah, like the foreground is kind of clear, but then the background is like kind of foggy. Yeah, I'm thinking how to best approach that, right? Because there is something there. What you could do is emphasize like morning light, right? Where you have like a lot of fog and a lot of dew, like sitting on the grass, and that creates like this low-hanging fog. You're never gonna get like this kind of fog though. So that must be like a different weather condition, like changing temperatures or something like that. Yeah, that might be something to look into. I'm gonna note it down as like a more moody lighting setup, because right now everything is kind of neutral. Maybe making it more moody, and like you're going for like the golden hours, right? Where you have like the early morning hours, or like the golden hours or magic hours, or whatever you call it. Like the early morning hours where the sun is rising up, or the late hours when the sun is like setting down again. Could maybe be interesting to also emphasize it's kind of what I did on my scene as well, like the one that I did like 5 years ago, is I used the sun as deliberate like addition to the storytelling, where I had this sunrise to indicate that the sun was coming up, they survived like another day, and it would like inspire hope, and it would create like this very moody picture, right? Where the sun is just rising up, you would see that they survived another night, and everything was kind of good again. Like you can kind of use that to emphasize the storytelling of your scene as well. I love that. Thanks for bringing that up. gonna make a note of that. So morning sun. Hope? Question mark. Some ideas there. Love it. Paid attention to like some of the details. We had a look at the composition a little bit and some of the material stuff that stood out a little bit. I think a lot of what you can do here is just pay attention to like the details, right? Like think about like how different elements react to like the weather conditions as well. So if this has been here for a while, everything kind of has this, currently everything kind of has this like pristine-ish kind of feel, right? Where like the wood is kind of new and everything is kind of pristine, but you can actually just really nicely detail this up with like decals, where this tarp is going to get a lot of water coming over it, right? So you would expect water to be touching the tops of these planks as well, and maybe underneath these tarps too, which is going to mean that they're going to either discolor if they're like very, very new or like relatively new, or they might even get like kind of greenish, like off color, right? And you can kind of use that again to do some storytelling as well. So yeah, some gonna remove this weird line in here. So you could have like leaks, you could have moss, whatever, right? And really adding that additional layer of like details on top of it. And you can apply that to like a lot of stuff here, right? So yeah, I think that's about it. Raj, thank you so much for sharing this awesome picture with us as well. Like I love how quick this is coming together, and like how much effort has gone into it as well, right? Because you can really tell that a lot of effort went into this. So great job so far, and thanks for sharing it as well. Appreciate that a lot. And yeah, good luck in the future. Michelle, that's a good question, but that's not really what we're gonna do here. This is more of like a community and I give feedback kind of thing. I would love to chat about that in my personal work stream though, every Friday. This is just like a different kind of setup. Next up, we got Paul. Hi Paul, how's it going? Oh, William is in the chat as well. William Mata. Hi, Alexander is here as well. Good to see you all. Hope you're all doing well. Coffee Diction is here too. Alright, so Paul is working on this little temple over here. I know it's early days, but with the feedback, can I get some advice on the scene as a whole? And what time of day do people like? Yeah, this is an interesting one, right, Paul? It's kind of what I highlighted before with the work from NetRarage that we just had a look at. Is you kind of have to look at the sun as like another mechanism of highlighting a certain mood that you want to set, right? And because this is like a temple of the sun, right? Like this is a temple for the sun goddess. It might be interesting to do like a sunset, so that you can see like the sun, the sun rising like behind it, right? And also because it's the land of the rising sun too, right? Like if you look at it historically, so there's like double, what is it, like there's basically like a double-edged sword that you can get there, where you can kind of hit like two very like important things to them culturally, like in one kind of image. So I would definitely experiment at least with something like a sunrise. Yeah, double entendre. Yeah, something like that. I don't think about the words. So sunrise? Question mark? And it ties into like the whole rising sun thing, right? Rising run? Rising sun. Well, are you doing a mountaintop still? Maybe a sunrise for the sun goddess? Yeah! See? See, yeah, it's fully aligned here. Love it. Sunrise. Love that. And Sia is also actually bringing up like a good point there as well, which kind of goes more about like the scene in general, right? If we take like a zoomed out approach, I think you got to be careful with the scene how it's currently set up. And with being careful, I mean that everything is kind of flat, right? So wait, so going to block out using mega scans. Oh, let's have a look. There's a work in progress thingy there. Oh yeah, I had a look through these, but if these are really too inspiring, you know? Like I think what you were already looking at this, I think, from some images from Ghost of Tsushima, right? Where let's have a look. Oh, okay, I see what you're doing. Yeah. Oh, I didn't see that one. Okay, so let me share that on here as well, just so we can get some context. So that's going to be like the setup of it. Okay. Okay, that's going to save me some time because that's what I was going to talk about, you know? And that's going to be very important in how you like block that out or like lay that out, right? No, that's cool. Then I won't really be talking about that too much then. Oh, it's very rough, but that's okay, right? Wanted some opinions, focusing on the link to the sun goddess and experimenting with trim sheets. I'm thinking of adding some wooden patterns on the side of the altar. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I think everything is good then so far. I like that you have this little like overpaint, like highlighting the different things, like the different things that you still want to add, right? It's pretty good. Let's explore the composition a bit, right? Like, let's see what we can do like very quickly, because you kind of had this the layout that you added. I know that it was like a quick drawn out thing, but it was actually kind of like a boring like 3/4 like overview, right? So if we focus a little bit on the mood, what could actually be interesting? I'm trying to think, right? So we have like the temple itself, and you're kind of looking up towards it. So you kind of have like this, it's like staircase coming up towards it, and then maybe you see like the sunrise like behind the clouds or something like that, right? I'm thinking very like broad, right? Like very, what is it, art direction wise, so that you're like overemphasizing what this actually stands for. Like the sun is coming up, and then to balance, we can kind of bring in that mountain that you had here, right? Kind of have that mountain. It's kind of sticking up. Like it becomes a focal point. You could have like a very symmetrical one, or you could have it like offset as well, right? Where maybe even it would be kind of interesting to... You can either have it like very open, or what could be interesting is that you could have it like very closed, right? You basically have like this mountain path that kind of leads you down. And you have like the staircase going up. Looks like I'm scribbling here, but give me a second. I mean, it's still gonna look like scribbling. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, it's almost like you're standing on like a little bit of a platform that kind of looks down into like a little dip, and then you have like the shrine itself. So it's kind of like you're going from like a small path, and then it opens up the scene, right? You could kind of... Don't wanna take up too much space either, right? So have the back with like some wispy clouds. Yeah, I still I think with this one I'm kind of dying to get some foliage in there. That's what I'm kind of thinking about. Yeah, maybe, oh, what you could do is actually, instead of doing that, maybe you would have like a look down into the valley, right? So this is like the end of the platform, and you could have a look down into the valley where you see like mountains in the distance, and then in the back of that, there you have like the sun rising or something like that. Be very interesting. And so, like this stuff would be like some foliage. And kind of use that to kind of cluster up in like little bushes. And then you would have like the background terrain with like the sun in the back. And then this is a freaking coloring book at this point. And the main focal point would be like the temple itself still. Right? Thank you so much for subscribing, Lauren. Appreciate that. But yeah, something like this, you know, where I'm thinking about it in like grandiose terms, where I imagine this climb up on a hill, and then the last thing you see, like you swipe the brush away, and that's where like the hidden path opens up to reveal like this temple, right? Like this, it's supposed to be the top of a mountain, right? So it's kind of like a pilgrimage, and that also allows you to add some wear and tear, but it's still like kind of retained by like the local people. You could do some really cool stuff there with this kind of setup. Didn't work. Okay. Yeah, and kind of hide stuff from it, and maybe have like a tree or like some bushes in the foreground. Kind of getting carried away now, but Yeah, you can do some really cool stuff with this. Gonna be exciting, Paul. Yeah, so we'd have like foreground is like the rocks or like the shrubbery that you like push out of the way, right? And then the middle ground is actually the focal point, which is going to be the temple. And in the background is literally like layers of mountains you see in the distance with like the sun rising up from it. Very interesting. Yeah. Just a quick exercise there. Composition, maybe? You're gonna play around with this, right? Like, this is kind of like a throwaway thing. It's just my idea. But like my interpretation of what it could be looking like, right? Let me catch up on what you said as well. With the concept of the rising sun, I'm trying to make it quite illustrative, just to know if anything stood out. Was a miss so far. Wooden patterns on the side. Yep. Consider with the foliage. Oh yeah. You mentioned that here, right? Like the foliage on the side because of fertility. So that's actually an interesting point. If you want to highlight that, you always have to highlight it in kind of a contrast, right? So what you could do there is let's say do like a quick top down, right? Like a quick top down of your scene. What you can then do is, let's say you have your little temple in the middle, is if you really want to highlight it, right? The fertile lands is you have like a space around the temple that's like really fertile, right? And then the rest of it, you just make that like just dirt or something that looks like it's not fertile anymore, right? And then you're like elevating it up to the next thing. I think you have to be careful with how much you're trying to add onto the scene, right? That you don't add too much. I think it would honestly be totally fine if you just stick with the sun part of it, where it's all about the rising sun and like the goddess of the sun and that kind of angle. Because you also don't want to make it like too much on the same thing, right? But that's honestly up to you, Paul. So I'm curious what you're gonna do with that. But you can do some really cool imagery when you think about it in contrast, right? Where you have like the center of it is like very lush, and then around it is just like dry rock and like mixes of like dirt and whatever. So if you imagine that just in terms of like the colors that you're gonna add onto the scene, you will have like this very vibrant like middle focal point, and then the rest of it is all gonna be like a bit more dreary in terms of color, right? So it's gonna help with emphasizing the focal point on top of it too. Yeah. Awesome. Some good ideas in here. Sounds good. Thanks for that. Yeah, no worries. No worries. There's so many ways that you can emphasize that too, right? So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I think the rest of it, you know, like I saw you work on the trim sheets. They're looking good. I mean, I gave you feedback on that already, right? So yeah, I'm just looking forward to how this come together. You have one last question though. Do you think the sword is worth adding into it? I don't think so. Where is it even? Let's have a look. It's here, right? Is that what we're talking about, Paul? Like this sword over here? Yes. Let me think. Because if I remember correctly, you kind of want it to be like a warrior shrine, right? Like you wanted it to be that a warrior kind of comes to the shrine, like takes a rest and like This is kind of like their pilgrimage, right? You could do. I was very hesitant to say that because I think it doesn't really tie into the narrative too much, right? But then again, like if you think about like the sun, right? Like I could imagine warriors like coming there to I don't know too much about like the whole culture side of things, right? Especially in all historical culture from like the Japanese side of things. But they obviously revere the goddesses as well, right? So they have some sort of form of praying or like worshipping their gods by making offerings or whatever. So I can see samurai coming over there and like making offerings. Yeah. So I don't really think it's necessary to remove it. Could be like an interesting indication that there was someone there recently, right? Yeah. But I would definitely say like it's more like an additional thing, right? It's like a yeah, very much like a detail prop, right? Like something that you only have to worry about like at the end of things. Because the main emphasis should be on like the temple and like getting the story of like the sun goddess, like getting that right. Nice one, Paul. Keep it up, buddy, and keep the work in progress post up as well. Nice one. Yeah, sweet. At this point I don't really have too much more to add, right? I'm just curious to see what you're gonna do with it. I'm excited about it, man. I'll do my best. Yes, I know you will. Good luck on that, Paul. Next up, we have David. Let's have a look at this awesome piece over here. Let's get some context as well. I've been focusing on the campsite area and the scene and the foliage. Please let me know if any feedback you have or glaring issues that I haven't spotted yet. Yeah, let's have a look. I like the ground foliage, like just the way that the ground kind of blends with itself, right? Like all the different layers that you added on top of it. Looking really nice. Of the ground. Just looking at some of the foliage here. It is quite nice and dense. I would definitely have like smaller clumps of it, you know, because now what's happening is you have this like foliage cutoff. So maybe like smaller clusters like that are still like quite visible, right? But to have like a transition. A transition. Grass. Maybe we get like smaller and smaller clusters. Maybe even, because you're getting quite up close, right? Like maybe even trampled grass? Just throwing out an idea here. Because you have like a lot of nice detail in the scene already. Maybe it will be cool to have like some trampled grass meshes, right? Especially for the up close shots. You just have like, I don't know, like small clusters of like just like almost flattened grass, right? So if you look at it from the side and this would be, wait, let me do that here. This would be the landscape. You would almost have just like, yeah, I don't know, like a mesh like this, I guess. Where it's like flattened and then it bounced back up because people have been stepping on it. Because I'm also thinking about it in a way where it could be like a very good indication of how long they've actually been at this place, right? Because if you have fresh grass, then that's an indication that there's like no human interaction with the foliage at all. But if there's actually like a lot of trampled grass, that could also hint that they haven't been there for too long, right? And they're still kind of setting up camp. They're kind of preparing for the hunt or whatever they're doing in this scene. So you could kind of give like a good indication of like the time they've been here. Yeah, I love the scene so far. It's looking quite nice. I love the very desaturated, like almost horror kind of vibe that's going on here. Yeah, apart from that, nothing that really stands out to me, like, immediately, you know? Like, one thing that I could maybe say is having like, smaller, like, bits, like, saplings, right? Kind of add, like, an additional layer here. Would maybe be nice. It's only because I've been doing so much of it, right? Like, just having like a little indication of like smaller saplings or like smaller trees. And then maybe also like some bushes, right? But I feel like you're gonna do this anyway, so. So that could definitely add like another layer to your foliage where you have like some very, very lengthy, like very vertical things. And then you have like the very horizontal, like bushy stuff. It's going to create like a nice contrast between the two. You kind of watch out with, well, I think I kind of have to watch out with what I say here, right? Because this is not your typical deciduous forest. Like, we're looking at pine trees here, right? So you would have to have a look at what kind of foliage grows there. So what I'm saying here, especially when it comes to the bushes, might not even be applicable because it's literally too cold for them to grow there. But that's, I mean, that's what you want to do with it, right? You can take it out or leave it. I see what you're doing here, by the way. Sneaky little castle in the back. I saw that. I think a quick little thing here, if you want to have a castle in the back, make that the top of the mountain. Right? It's like a very quick thing, and you could have like, I don't know, like forests like next to it, and then have like a clearing in the forest, and then have forest next to it as well. But then you have like a nice silhouette against like the background. Right? Like it stands apart from like all the rest because now the dark shade of the mountain behind it is kind of obscuring like this castle. Plus the castle is all most likely going to be on the highest place anyway. Right? So it's actually gonna, there is a word for that where you're actually, yeah, I think it's called silhouetting, right? When you're on the top of a mountain, like you're so much more visible to see because you actually affect the silhouette of it. Rather than if you stand like, I don't know, not on the ridge, but like, let's say 10 steps closer, like you would blend in with like the mountain itself. And I spelled that wrong again. Don't care. Silhouette? Yeah, I love that little castle in the back. Just add a little bit of depth to it as well. You could almost kind of tie a story, right? Like you could almost kind of make up a story where these people have been sent by the castle in the back to defend it from like the local wildlife or whatever the local wildlife is. Maybe it's like a monster or something, right? But yeah, nothing really additionally to add at this point, David. And I like where this is going. Good job. And next up, we got Nicole. Nicole is working on this awesome stylized project over here. Let me grab some context from the chat as well. Nicole has a roof. Have to alter the walls a bit since I moved the roof around a little bit, but happy with the texture. Yeah, texture's looking quite nice. I think everyone already knows what I'm gonna say here. Like, there's an easy win with this roof, right? And it has to do with the edges, right? Like right now the edge is like super straight. Such an easy win where you just add like a couple of loops into it and you literally like deform the silhouette of it, right? Like where do you break off? You just extend this one a little bit. And then maybe this one is kind of like crooked in that way. And maybe this one. Right? You're kind of breaking up the silhouette a little bit. And not only the silhouette in this case, because it's such a repeating pattern, right? You also have to kind of do that here as well. Where you can just break these little sections up. And make them look like way more organic than they do now. As like a really quick win. You did such a good job on the texture. But you don't really have to retexture it. This is only like pushing and pulling the low poly by just adding like a couple more edges and like kind of skewing it. You can get some like real easy wins on this, Nicole. And yeah, you can kind of repeat that process on like all the rest of them as well, right? You would just break it up. Love these types of overpaints. So satisfying to me. I don't know why. Break up the silhouette. Wait. Let me... Is that how it's spelled? I don't know anymore. I'm so confused. But yeah, you can do that on a lot of stuff, right? Where... Yeah, you just break up that silhouette. It's gonna look so much nicer. Lovely texture work though. Nice one. You can kind of apply this kind of rule to like a lot of stuff, right? Like if we look at some of this stuff as well, like right now, most of the pillars are aligned, right? Like we can draw like a straight line and you can see that they're all like at the same height. Just do the same thing, right? Like just make this one a little bit shorter, this one a little bit taller. And then maybe even do the same thing here where how much you do it, like it's up to you, right? Like I'm overextending and like retracting these by a lot, but you get to decide like how far you want to go with this. And then you can do the same thing by moving this little fella up a little bit, right? And then keeping this one here, and it makes the whole thing feel like way more organic just by doing that. Real quick wins. Nice one. I love this, where you're adding like real tiles to the tileable as well. There might be... I'm gonna make a note here for maybe you can look into it, right? But look into POM, which is parallax occlusion mapping. Parallax occlusion. That's one S, right? Oh no. And it's basically, once you have like a height map, which in your case is probably going to be hand painted, right? Which is totally fine. You can actually use it to kind of give more fake depth to your bricks or to any material, really, right? So it's gonna based off the height map, is gonna give like certain areas like more emphasis or like more height, perceived height, and then it's gonna push certain areas down. So yeah, like using the height map, basically 0.5 gray, like mid gray, is not gonna do anything. Anything above that is gonna be pushing the geometry up. And then anything below that is going to be pushing the geometry down, right? So this is like a value of 1. This is a value of 0. So this is white. And this is black. Right? And then you have like control in Unreal Engine, how you want to, or in whatever software that you use, you probably have like a little bit of a control over that. But that would be something to look into, like a height map. Depending on how much depth you want into it, right? Because it might help actually to blend these two things together. Like where you have like just a tileable and then like these stones sticking out. What you could also do with the stones, I know we're going back around, is just have them like slightly misaligned, right? A lot of cool stuff that you can do with that. A lot of cool stuff with that. Like you could even like add more bricks, right? Where you could have this one stick out as well, and then this one is going to be like slightly misaligned, and then maybe this one is also whatever you need to do to make it nice, right? Like if you have the feeling that the blend here is not working that well, parallax could be an option, but also just adding more bricks, like the more manual way, that works too, right? Whatever you need to do to make it pretty. Love the light coming in. So good. It's so good! Sia is fully agreeing. Loving the stylization. I love it too. Yeah. This is coming along nicely though. Like what you did with the stairs as well. I love this little simple piece of cloth. It adds like a nice dynamic element to the scene. Here as well. I love how it's draped over the chest. Nice interactability between different props. Always nice to see. Yeah. Great stuff, Nicole. Great stuff. Oh, on the wooden floor, I'll give you the trick anyway that I was going to explain. But it's up to you if you want to implement it, right? What you could actually do, if you have a tileable, right? You can kind of do the same implementation like you did here with the stones. You could actually cut out like a section of the tileable. Let's say this plank. So you add some geometry into it. And then you add like a full plank into it that is like slightly sticking up. Okay, so that you get like this gap in the floor. Which could be like a neat detail to play around with as well. And then once you got one plank, you know, you can do that on like a lot of pieces on the floor. Could be very interesting. Again, totally up to you what you want to do with that, right? It's your scene. Yes, I love this little corner over here. It looks so good. I know I'm kind of getting into the weeds of this wall, like we kind of did that last time as well, right? But it would actually be interesting to see how far you can actually push it. Because like if we're taking the whole medieval fantasy aspect to it, right? The way that they used to build walls, especially in the early medieval times, is they would actually have, this is from a top-down perspective, right? So they would actually have like a couple of poles, and they would kind of like bend twigs in between them, right? And they would probably like interlace them like that. You would have like these two poles, and you would have like a whole bunch of sticks that are kind of like wedged in between them. And then they kind of would fill up the gaps with like the plaster that you got represented here, right? Now that I'm thinking about it, it might be too much detail. Like it might be too distracting, but maybe it could be like a nice little thing to incorporate, right? Where you have like certain parts where like the wooden frame still sticks out. Oh, and then maybe with like a thicker beam here. And then maybe a twig around this one. I don't know. The more I draw on here, the more it feels like it might be distracting. It's up to you, Nicole. Just an idea. To get some references, these are called wattle walls. Wattle, and the technique where they actually fill it up is wattle and daub. Daub. So if you want some reference on that and how that works, feel free to look that up, and that's going to give you like a lot of ref on it. There's even like people that recreate it in like the original way, and it's kind of still being used today as well to do like very eco-friendly buildings. Could be an idea. I'll leave that up to you. Feel free to explore it or not. But yeah. Honestly, not that much more to add, Nicole. Like, I love this stuff. Like, it's coming together really nicely. I love the speed that you're working with as well. Yeah, good stuff, Nicole. And thank you so much for sharing this as well with us. Appreciate it. And then last on the list today, we got Matthew over here. Matthew Wilshaw. Making some fan art from his favorite place to be working at. Let's see. Kind of getting close to the end. I'm wondering if anyone had any feedback. So yesterday we discussed some feedback already, right? So we actually already discussed that it might be interesting to have like a floor on this environment. I think Matthew might have actually preferred not to do it, or maybe he's still working on it. I honestly have no idea at this point. Yeah, like a floor for presentation, right? Like going a little bit further with the presentation, especially presentation. Beautiful work, yeah, I love it. Do you know any resources how to make a prop like this? Yeah. On ArtStation Learning, like there's a really good course on it by Jason Ord, I think. Like he goes through the whole process. I think he's focused more on the texturing side. I don't know if he actually goes through like the modeling side of things, but that would be like the perfect course for this. Like that's spot on, right? So definitely check that one out. Yeah. But for presentation over here, or like the floor for the presentation, there was actually some cool things that Matthew was doing yesterday with like Mega Scan's like table underneath it. Looked quite interesting. Obviously, you don't have to do that for like the floating presentation, but like the lying down ones, they could definitely make use of it. But yeah, I would say something that I immediately noticed. I don't even know how well the stream is gonna pick this up, but yeah, I don't know if you can see that, but the chromatic aberration on this is like way too strong. Like I'll zoom in and I'll let you see what that looks like, right? It's basically like a film or TV effect where it like will like blur the edges, right? But it's just like way too strong on this. I'm gonna make a note of that, Matt. Chromatic. It's also a camera effect now that I think of it. So too strong. Yeah, definitely. With chromatic aberration, you have to be like very careful, because it quickly goes into the realm of like feeling like blurry, right? Because it will do that effect on the edges. So you gotta watch out for that. Billboard, greetings from Costa Rica. Hi, nice to meet you. Learning foliage at the moment for games. That's awesome. Good luck with that. William is saying trying to isolate that chromatic aberration, only the highlights maybe? Oh yeah, because that's how it naturally occurs, right? Where you have like strong contrast or like highlights, that's where it would like most likely occur. Yeah, I'll add it. That's a good suggestion. I think you would... So the way to do that then would be to render out two separate renders, right? And then overlay them on top of each other, and then probably manually paint out like manually paint in the areas that you want to highlight with like chromatic aberration. I don't know how that's gonna look. No? I'll just be honest about it. I don't really know how that's gonna look. Might be weird. You have to be really careful with like the harshness of your brushes then if you want to do it, because I honestly don't know, but I don't think there's like such advanced settings for chromatic aberration in like most cases. Yeah, because people will be zooming in on this, right? And then yeah, it starts to break apart like very quickly. Yeah, honestly, great stuff on this though. It's looking quite nice. Probably, I don't know, like it's on the texturing side of things, right? Like very minute detail, where some of the things that really stood out to me is like you have this metal edge wear. It's kind of pretty uniform, where you would probably most likely expect that on stuff that is gonna be interacting with other surfaces a lot, right? So adding more contrast in it, where you would kind of push it to be like nothing here, and then like exaggerate it like on the edges, right? And then maybe again on these sides you would kind of like tweak it, right? And then you would have it here again, and then this is going to be nothing. So kind of like maybe even here, right? Because this edge, like the way that I think about it, right, is this edge is not the outer edge of the object unless we're laying it flat, and then you can interact with it. But the amount of times you're going to bump it into that compared to the actual outer edge of the object over here is going to be less, right? So that means that the damage that we're going to do here is going to be more than the damage that we're going to add on this edge, right? So we could kind of use that as like, okay, we kind of did this amount of damage here, so that means that we're going to add a little bit of damage, but not too much, right? And then have nothing here again. Then maybe we can apply the same thing here, and then do like a big damage pass here, and then go to nothing it again, right? It's like I approach that in like a very logical way, where, and also thinking about it in contrast, right? Like that's the thing that I constantly keep bringing up, is that you don't want it to be like uniformly done, but like you have to think about it in the way that stuff works as well. So for example, this mechanism is going to be moving up and down like a lot, right? Which is going to add like a whole bunch of stuff, like a whole bunch of scratches on here, up until the point where this mechanism can't go further down, right? So that's going to mean that this is not going to be affected by it. So that means on this piece that you're going to have like a lot of very specific dirt and like very specific scratches, because this mechanism is also moving in tandem with it, right? So you're probably gonna have like lots of damage here, or like more damage compared to other stuff there, and then these areas are gonna be more just generic dirt, right? So that's kind of the way, right? And this is almost at the top position, so we're not gonna see too much here. So this is gonna be just dirty again, right? So this is like the interaction area. I just call it that because that's where it interacts with like other pieces of the prop, right? And then you can apply the same thing here, right? Where you're probably gonna, this thing is gonna rotate around, right? Like this mechanism is gonna be rotating around. And that's basically like, this probably has like, oh, what is it called? I can't think of the English word. Schroefdraad. That's that's the Dutch pronunciation for it. But it probably has, it's linking into this, right? So you twist this and it goes up and down based on how you twist it. So that also means that there's gonna be like damage in here as well, right? Because this thing is literally interacting with these grooves, right? And then there's probably gonna be interactions here as well. And then this, what you've actually done really nice is where it just like gathers dirt, right? Because it's not gonna be interacting with something because it's not, this doesn't have like a lip that goes into it. It's just, looks like it's just like a flat surface. So it will only be scratching this area and this area, right? And then same way here, that's going to be our total interaction area then. Right? So it's just basically like a long-winded way of saying that you can really think about like how stuff interacts with each other and then use that as like a foundational logic to then do a texture pass of your objects. But yeah, honestly, it's up to you, right? You're kind of close to the end of the project anyway. I think, even though I said like a bunch of stuff before, I think this looks awesome, right? Like the presentation of it feels very clean. Maybe there's some stuff that you can do with the floor that we mentioned at the beginning, but I think the presentation looks very clean. Lighting is on point. There's a lot of discoloration, a lot of interesting stuff happening on this wrench already. So great job on that, Matt. Yeah, honestly. Same here with the chromatic aberration. This one isn't too bad because it's mostly focused here, right? But the rest of it is actually kind of clean. Oh, this is nice. Nice little detail over there. I love that. Yeah, man, great job. Great job on it. I can, yeah, I mean, don't want to nitpick too much, right? Like, I'm just taking it in, you know? Very nice. Yeah, cool stuff, Matt. Cool stuff. Oh, William Mata is also from Costa Rica. That's awesome. 2 Costa Ricans here. That's amazing. I think out of these 3 renders, these are probably my favorites, you know. Gotta say, I love the softness and the way that this looks. And I like this kind of presentation where it's kind of floating as well. Great stuff, Matthew. Great stuff. And that's already it. Quite short one. Love it. Thank you so much, everyone that was here for posting their work as well. And yeah. Thanks for giving a couple of shout outs as well, William. Thank you so much. Yeah, honestly, that's it for this week then. I'm gonna pop out of here. I'm gonna take it a little bit chill because this weekend has been pretty chaotic. So yeah, thanks everyone for being here. Check out all the amazing stuff that we have on beyondexcedent.com, and I'll see you. When do I see you? Friday to do some more art. Let's get together and make some art, you know? And then yeah, just have a chill time. I think it's gonna be awesome. So yeah, I'll see you on Friday. Thanks Tim. Will is saying in the chat, no worries. And then Matthew was also saying we'll definitely try and go back and do some more contact surfacing. Nice one, Matt. Thank you so much for putting this up, dude. And look, I know that I'm always critical here, right? But this looks awesome. A great job on that already. Like, I love this piece, Matt. Great job on it. All right, people, I'm gonna peace out. Have a nice evening, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.